my success formula has been that I have been and always have been a teacher. I teach on paper. I teach through diagrams. I teach through whatever I need, but my job is to be the in-between. It's like, okay, here's scary domain knowledge, and then here's you, and you're in pain. And my job is to get you out of pain and to get you functional. And I will do whatever I have to do. And it's my job to have the empathy to figure out, what words do I need to use? What approach do I need to use? What analogies are going to work for you? That's where all the it's a deeply creative job.
It is leaps and bounds different. I mean, there was a staff of 10 of us. Nice. I mean, I was doing the actual writing. We had a photographer, and he would take the pictures, and I would actually do functional layouts.
So before you started putting that information together into documentation, and the frustrations are like the 6 to 9 months it would take a new employee to get onboarded compared to after you started writing a few documents. What was that like before and after?
It's interesting because good documentation is kind of like air conditioning. When people are in a building and doing their thing, they don't really pay any attention to it. But as soon as it goes away, everyone freaks out.
For example, how do you balance that?
Yeah. So the 3 words I'll use are know your audience. Like everything we write is for somebody, right? Which sounds kind of obvious when I say it out loud, but it's also something you have to keep in mind because you're not just making words, you're creating something that hopefully somebody will be able to pick up and read and actually use to, make their lives or their jobs better.
Ada, tell us, what is your academic background and how did you get started in technical writing?
Hi, Simone. Thanks for having me here. So, I'll jump in. My background is in chemistry. I have a master's in chemistry. And I kind of fell into technical writing.
There becomes a pattern, even if the patterns between different types of those services are different. Like you can establish this is how I document this type of workflow within this, even within different pages within a certain user interface. It's like, oh, this is how we introduce this concept. This is how we introduce navigating into a page. This is how we talk about subsections. This is how we cross-link between them. And taking the time to think about that before you're in the weeds writing the actual procedures.
It's really important that one, you think of yourself as not just, I'm writing docs. You're designing and developing the information piece of the product. The documentation does not exist on its own. It has no use on its own. It's intended for people to use to perform a task, to get a job done, to do something.
Talk to a lot of different departments. You are the informative glue that kind of holds all of the information structure together throughout that organization. And I do, and I find that is more of my passion.
I'm pretty much an electronics guy. He goes, Bill, hydraulics is just slow electronics. He goes, and he said there's a lot of similarities to it, including components. He said, like, for electricity, you might have a capacitor. For hydraulics, that's called an accumulator. And, but how things are supposed to work.
Expectation of having that level of expertise out the gate when it's going to take years of just being in the trenches to kind of really hone your craft. How do you balance that?
A portfolio of actual work is so much more valuable than writing on a CV that you've studied a certain thing before. It really is the currency of offers, and it's really what sets people apart.
Sentence, commas are 10 cents, periods are always free. That was their favorite phrase to use, and I took that to heart.
Hold on. Say that again. Commas are, say it again.
Commas are 10 cents. Periods are always free.
On technical side, but also resonate with them that you need to write it in a way that anybody can understand, not just under the engineer. How did you bridge that communication gap when you taught that class?
So I love taking the craft and science of writing and throwing it to any subject.
Drawing people's attention to the right thing so that they're not distracted in those screenshots or images. So I do a lot of adding arrows and boxes and blurring things out because I want their attention. I want them to be able to quickly see and draw their attention to what they need to do in order to move to that next step.
Here's the content ecosystem that you have here that I can help you with, I can be a part of, that I can collaborate with other people on, or
you can build the most incredible product in the world. It could change lives, right? But if you don't know how to use it and nobody knows how to access it, it's really not any good. And by making sure that we are community focused and giving and making sure like there's a balance between giving and taking, and users can tell you what they think and what they need, then we can create something better for everybody.
And the advice again is just if you're going into technical writing, is have an open mind, be flexible. Your responsibilities can change at any time. Like it happens to me almost every day, or at least every week. You're ready for the unknowns. You could be working on a user manual one hour, and the next hour suddenly you're asked to work on a brochure. So you're kind of just switching the light.
I don't know that there's anything I wouldn't do. I guess what I'd say is don't be afraid to fail. Failure's as long as you learn, then, that's a step forward. I also think it's important to understand that as a tech writer, you're much more than a writer. You're an interviewer. Often you're a subject matter boundary spanner. You often will acquire knowledge and you become a subject matter expert yourself.
Well, I think, again, and I even tell my students this, audience and purpose, that's where you start. Every single document. It doesn't matter if you're writing for a newspaper or writing an essay or writing something for a scientific or medical journal. It's always about audience and purpose, right? So at that point,